5 minutes gone past the 4 o'clock hour, officially welcoming you again to Hard Facts. This will be your most authentic news experience on the radio, and I always tell you that you can take that to the bank. It's time for Global Review. Every Thursday at 4 p.m. we take a look at what's happening everywhere else other than Nigeria. And today we're in the United States of America. And I'm very excited because my good friend John is joining us on the show today to analyze all that you've been seeing in the news, whether you're watching Al Jazeera, CNN, BBC, Sky News, ABC. Everyone's talking about the presidential elections in the United States and who will occupy the Oval Office come November. John is joining us live via Zoom. John, are you joining us from DC?
Calling you from Boston in the Northeast United States.
Oh, yeah. Great. I've always thought that you were in DC. I don't know why.
No, I'm here in Boston.
Great.
Maryann, it's great to be with you at a time that's really not just an important time in American politics, but is really, I think, an extraordinary time in American history. The last few weeks have just been remarkable. All of the events that we've witnessed, many of them completely unprecedented, or at least within living memory.
Absolutely. But I want to start this conversation on the basis where everyone thought that Joe Biden was going to continue, with his campaign, even after the Donald Trump shooting. In fact, I think where everyone started wondering if he was going to go through with this was after that debate. It was, I must tell you, it wasn't what everybody was expecting. And so people started saying, well, maybe he needs to step down. But let's start with the video of the president of the United States speaking to Americans after he decided that he was going to step down. Let's take that video, and then John, you and I were going to go into further conversations. Let's take a listen to that video by Mr. Joe Biden.
Whether we keep our republic is now in your hands. My fellow Americans, it's been the privilege of my life to serve this nation for over 50 years. Nowhere else on earth could a kid with a stutter, beginnings in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and Claymont, Delaware, one day sit behind the resolute desk in the Oval Office as President of the United States. But here I am. That's what's so special about America. We're a nation of promise and possibilities, of dreamers and doers, of ordinary Americans doing extraordinary things. I've given my heart and my soul to our nation, like so many others. I've been blessed a million times in return with the love and support of the American people. I hope you have some idea how grateful I am to all of you. The great thing about America is here, kings and dictators do not rule, the people do. History is in your hands. The power is in your hands. The idea of America lies in your hands. We just have to keep the faith, and remember who we are. We're the United States of America, and there's simply nothing beyond our capacity when we do it together. So let's act together, preserve our democracy. Whether we keep our republic is now in your hands. My fellow Americans, it's been the privilege of my life. How grateful I am to all of you. The great thing about America is here, kings and dictators do not rule, the people do. History is in your hands. The power is in your hands. The idea of America lies in your hands. We just have to keep the faith. And remember who we are. We're the United States of America. And there's simply nothing beyond our capacity when we do it together. So let's act together, preserve our democracy.
Well, that was President Joe Biden speaking to Americans, obviously, after he decided that he was not going to run. And we've seen so many people, appreciating messages from different parts of the world, world leaders reacting to that. How did that make you feel first as a citizen of the United States of America, John?
Well, Maryann, I think that the speech was very dignified, and it had the scope of history to it, describing the ideas that make America what it is, talking about his 50-year career in American politics, really spanning so many massive historical events. And I was proud of the president And I really empathize with him and the difficulty of the decision that he made. But at the same time, I think that the speech helped us understand why this is the right time for him to retire, because you could hear in his delivery that he's quite tired. There's a lot of stress and responsibility on his shoulders, and he's reached the end of his career. The way that he speaks and the way that he delivers a speech of this kind is not the same way that he sounded 10 years ago when he was running as a vice presidential candidate with Barack Obama. The responsibility of the office, the toll that it takes on a person, and all of the years of public service have definitely accumulated to a point where it's the right time for President Biden to retire. But I think that we'll look back on this speech as a proud moment for him and also for the country. It's a wonderful thing to see a president or any other major political figure voluntarily retire. This is important because the unprecedented aspect really of what he's doing, I think, it's important to understand that we have not had a president run for a single term and then choose not to seek re-election since the 1840s. Maryann, this is 100 years before Nigeria was even an independent country was the last time something like this happened. So it is a remarkable thing to see. And I think it's a proud moment because voluntarily relinquishing power is something that many countries don't really get to witness.
But then again, for those of us who are looking from the outside in, it looked like it took a lot of pressure, a lot of people, including his very good friend Barack Obama, to, whisper in his ears and say, look, Joe, it's time to step away from this. Like you said, it must have been a really hard decision for him. But then it brings us to the question of who was he going to hand over the baton to? Because many people wouldn't have thought that, Kamala had any skin in the game.
Maryann, I think to your point, these 3 weeks since Joe Biden's disappointing debate performance until his decision to retire seemed like an eternity when we were watching them in the moment. But as we look back on this period with a couple years of distance, it will seem as though it was a blip. We won't remember those 3 weeks. We'll remember the debate and we'll remember the decision. We won't remember all of the pressure and discussions that happened inside his circle. And, he kept on insisting that he was going to run for re-election in that period. And all of his staff were saying the same thing. But I think it's a little bit like the football manager who gets that dreaded vote of confidence that all the way until the moment that he's sacked, all the people around him say, no, we're sticking with the manager. We have full faith and trust in the manager. And then all of a sudden they don't anymore. And that's sort of what we witnessed. Of course, all the people around him insisted he was going to continue to run until he made that decision. And I think that from his perspective, the most important thing was to see his political party, the Democratic Party, unified heading into an important election in the fall. So the most sensible, logical, and strategic thing to do was to set the stage for a consensus to build around a replacement candidate. And because the vice president, Kamala Harris, is there waiting in the wings, she has been on the ticket. She was essentially nominated alongside him, even in this cycle, as he went through the primary process. As the voters voted for Joe Biden, they did so knowing that she was his running mate. It does make a lot of sense to encourage that consensus to build around her. And it shows a degree of confidence in her candidacy for the office.
Lovely. It took about, in less than a day, I think she had raised about $50,000 the moment she decided that she was going to throw her heart into the ring. Because I think one of the major concerns that people had was who in the Democratic Party at this moment, with the little window that the Democratic Party had, would be able to take over from Joe Biden. Nobody ever thought that Kamala would be the right man. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to ask you the same question. What changed in that moment that all of a sudden this person that everyone thought was an underdog became the man of the hour?
Well, Maryann, to your point about the campaign finance, I think that if any listeners or viewers or news watchers are hearing these numbers from outside the United States, they sound completely absurd and extraordinary. The number that I saw was that in the first 2 days of her candidacy, she raised something like $100 million. And it's really bizarre to many observers how much money there is in the game of American elections. I suppose to really grapple with those numbers, you have to just think about the size of the U.S. economy. A lot of that money is going to end up going into television advertising, which is quite expensive. For example, during the Super Bowl, I think that companies are spending about $15 million for a 30-second television spot.
Wow.
So it's really an incredible amount of money that's necessary to run a national campaign. But I think that to your question about how this consensus built around her so quickly, I think the most important thing was the endorsement that came from the president. I think that that was the green light, that she had his trust, that she was going to be the next leader of the Democratic Party. And I think that a lot of people who supported Joe Biden last time around were hoping to see a change to the next generation. They love and respect Joe Biden, but they thought it was maybe the right time for him to retire. And seeing his trust in her, who was his running mate, who's been in his administration, was a pretty significant thing. And they were ready to build a consensus around that person.
Lovely. Now, let's look at some of the things that Kamala might have to, or rather is campaigning on. I read a few things about, what she's looking at. She's looking at the abortion. In fact, I watched her when she said that one of the first things she would do when she becomes president is to upturn the Wade bill, because she said, in her words, that Trump handpicked these judges just for that reason. And when she comes in, she's going to change that. She's also going to be talking about the Hamas war. She's going to be looking at the criminal justice system and several other issues. In an order of importance, how important are these issues that she's raising to the average American people?
So the first issue that you mentioned, Maryann, is an issue that has been demonstrated to be quite resonant and important to American voters, and that's the issue of abortion.
Yeah.
So for people outside the United States to understand the way that all of this works, it's important to go back a little bit and learn about how abortion rights have been governed in the United States. In the 1970s, the U.S. Supreme Court made a decision called Roe v. Wade, which said that there was a national right to an abortion in the U.S. Constitution. And so for 50 years after that, this was guaranteed by the courts, not by the legislature, the Congress. So a few years ago, I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago, the Supreme Court came out with another decision that said, we got it wrong in the 1970s. The Constitution does not guarantee a right to an abortion. It has to be done through legislatures, whether those are the legislatures in our states, our subnational units, or whether that's the federal legislature, the Congress. So now the challenge is to contest the issue inside the political arena, now that it's moved a little bit outside of the court system. And this issue has proven to motivate voters across the country since that decision from a couple years ago. It's been proven to be a very powerful issue, especially for voters on the Democratic side of the aisle, the kinds of voters that Kamala Harris will be counting on in the upcoming election. And she has already been campaigning on this issue even before she was the presidential candidate. The other issues that you mentioned, the justice system, is an issue that has been a complicated one for Kamala Harris because she has a track record as a criminal prosecutor, putting the bad guys in jail, so to speak. But at the same time, a lot of people in her own party are hoping that the criminal justice system will become more lenient and will favor the defendants maybe more than prosecutors. So she has had to navigate that line of being, I have a record of being tough on crime, but I still empathize with people who are accused. Another spinner in this, Maryann, is that she is running against a person, Donald Trump, who is a convicted criminal. So she's certainly ready to use the line, I'm a prosecutor and I'm running against a criminal, at the same time as she wants to demonstrate that she empathizes with people who are accused of crimes.
Interesting. Let's talk about, there are a few guys that have been fingered to be maybe ones she might pick as her running mate. On a lighter note, there's an American actor who first said that, look, pick me, I'd make a better vice president. But then there are 4 people who have been, many people are saying this are the people who the Democrats might, push for Kamala to run with. One being the governor of, is it California?
Maryann, who was that actor? I'm curious. I haven't heard the story.
Lawrence Tate. He's a black man.
Oh, I'm not familiar with this. I'm gonna have to look this up because
Lawrence Tate. I think he acted in the 50 Cent's series called Ghost. No.
Oh, interesting.
No. There's a name for the movie, but yeah. He was a councilman in the movie, and there was also someone who was like a district attorney. He was trying to woo in the movie to join his ticket. So. Of course, it's more like it's a joke, but he's saying, look, Kamala needs to pick him. But then let's talk about these guys. We're putting the Power. That's the name of the series, Power. So there are a few guys that I'm looking at them again, who are one of them obviously is a governor, and people are saying these guys might just be a better pick. What do you think about some of these gentlemen that are in the Democratic Party that might be good picks for Kamala?
So there is a short list that's been floating around in the media, a list of about 12 names at the longest and maybe 5 or 6 names at the shortest that she is rumored to be considering. Yeah. And like you said, Maryann, a lot of these people are governors. So they're the equivalent of the president, but at the state level. Yeah. And a lot of these governors that she's looking at and considering are people who have been proven that they can win in states that are more conservative than the country. So a governor of the state of North Carolina, a state that voted for Donald Trump twice. This man, Roy Cooper, is a Democrat. So he's proven that he can win in a place that Donald Trump has support. Yeah. So that shows that there's a crossover appeal, that he's believed to be a moderate, that he's someone that conservatives are comfortable with. That's the kind of thing that's appealing to her. She's also looking at the governors and senators from states that are going to be tightly contested in this election, states in the Southwest, in the Midwest. These are the places where the election is going to be the most important. And if she brings a person from one of those states onto her ticket, maybe she'll get a boost in the states that she's trying to win. So there's a short list of people that she's looking at, and a lot of them seem very interested in running on her ticket, which shows confidence in her candidacy. And also, a plausible scenario, their choice. Well,
so we're looking at Josh Shapiro, we're looking at Mark Kelly, we're looking at Andy Bashir, and I think Roy Cooper. These are the top picks. That doesn't mean that they're not other people. But when we come back, we're going on a quick break, John. When we come back from that break, we're going to talk about Donald Trump, the shooting, and Vance, what he had to say about Kamala Harris not having a child. Of course, that's getting a lot of reaction on social media. Well, for those of you who do not know, we have John Gunnison, who's joining us via Zoom from Boston in the United States of America. And we are talking about the run for the seat. That's the Oval Office. The president of the free world. It's the biggest conversation all across the world. It's still Hard Facts, 99.3 Nigeria Info. We'll be right back after these messages. Of listeners trust us on Hard Facts, whether it's politics, social issues, controversies, and trending stories. We're credible and objective.
It's Hard Facts with Maryann Okon on 99.3 Nigeria Info.
There's a reason why over 1 million people tune into Hard Facts every day. We discuss in-depth stories with sources behind the facts.
The Lagos State High Court has convicted, suspended the Chicago certificate stories, never going away, is it? Show with stories for the day.
You hear diverse voices and opinions.
And she was meeting her friend with her husband, knowing that.
You should not be happy because there is nothing to happy about.
Yeah, it's
more conversation, more talk, more right after this.
99.3 Nigeria Info.
Your number one station for talk. Let's talk. Let's talk.
This season of Big Brother Naija is a must follow. Follow every twist and turn with eyes wide open. Cause even when the journey begins with chemistry, chaos follows. Strap in for two journeys in one house. Big Brother Naija Season 9 premieres Sunday 28 July, 7 p.m. West African time on DSTV 198 and GoTV 49. Gold sponsor, Guinness.
Guess who's coming back exclusively on Showmax? The Buzz. Coming back to give you all the inside scoop, spicy banter, and bigger secrets from Big Brother's house. Get ready for juicy behind-the-scenes videos that Biggie won't show you, but The Buzz would.
Join Toke Makinwa on BB Naija The Buzz, premiering on August 1st with a new episode showing every Thursday. Streaming only on Showmax. You can also stream BB Naija 24/7 on the Showmax app. Subscribe now. Sign up now at showmax.com.
Hey there! Yes, you! You just won 5,000 Naira cash! And you, sitting by the side, there's 1 month Showmax subscription to watch the Premier League waiting for you! You behind! Of course! You're not left out! How does 1,000 Naira airtime and 2,000 Naira Uber discount sound? All this could come true when you buy the No Unwrap and Win pack. Open it, look for a cube with a 6-digit code on its wrapper, text the code to 8011 and follow the prompts to stand a chance to win any of these instant prizes. Promo valid from July till December. Terms and conditions apply. Get extra value on the No Unwrap and Win pack. No, eat for good. Imagine thinking you bought an unlimited data plan, but the next thing we hear is,
oh, this data has finished again.
Well, that's what happens when you don't buy a truly unlimited data plan.
Enjoy truly unlimited data with unlimited speed-based data plans from Airtel. Visit www.airtel.com.ng/HBB to buy now.
Airtel, a reason to imagine.
Get in on the action with Betano, your exciting destination for sports betting. Enjoy an award-winning experience with amazing betting options, cash outs and missions, as well as other features. Join now and get a welcome bonus of up to 200,000 Naira. Betano.ng, the game starts now.
I'm in love, Sonia tomato mix, stand up. Easy to open, easy to squeeze, easy to scoop and easy to store. Dishes come alive with so much taste. Sonia tomato mix, of course. Sonia tomato mix, yes sir. Sonia tomato mix, stand up pouch.
Sonia tomato mix in a new stand-up pouch.
So much in love.
Don't wait, the all-new My DSTV app is here to give you a better experience and more control. It's your go-to place for easy self-service, special offers, live chat, voting on some of your favorite shows and more. Download it now, update your contact details before 20th July and bring on amazing. Do it today. Do it now. Download the enhanced My DSTV app to unlock even more. For inquiries, live chat with us on the app or on dstv.com.
If you get the big dreams to do big things, lonely day with red money. If you get the big dreams to do big things, lonely day with red money. If you get the big dreams.
Get loans of up to 7 million naira on Rain Money. Call 0700 5000 500 or visit rainmoney.com to get started now.
Hey yo, have you heard about Cherry's latest ride? Oh yeah, I've been eyeing that slick beauty. What's the scoop? Well, let me tell you, it's not just a car, it's an experience. Really? What makes Cherry stand out? Smooth curves, cutting-edge technology, and power under the hood that's ready to unleash your driving dreams. Sounds impressive. What about affordability? Oh, Cherry's got you covered there too. You get luxury that is designed for efficiency. Every Cherry purchase comes with 6 years free service and 6 years warranty or 200,000 kilometers, whichever comes first. Really? 6 years free service for every purchase of Cherry from Kamala? Absolutely. It's not just a car, it's a statement. So, what are you waiting for? Book a test drive today at Kamala Showroom, 3rd at the road, Alapere, Lagos, or call 0818-589-9486 for more details. Visit our website www.cherry.com.ng and www.kaloha.com. Cherry, fun to drive. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey there! Yes, you! You just won 5,000 Naira cash! And you, sitting by the side, there's 1 month Showmax subscription to watch Premier League waiting for you! You behind! Of course! You're not left out! How does 1,000 Naira airtime and 2,000 Naira Uber discount sound? All this could come true when you buy the No Unwrap and Win pack. Open it, look for a cube with a 6-digit code on its wrapper, text the code to 8011 and follow the prompts to stand a chance to win any of these instant prizes. Promo valid from July till December. Terms and conditions apply. Get extra value on the No Unwrap and Win pack. No, eat for good. Health, they say, is wealth. But when securing good health costs you an arm and a leg, or when you are at the hospital and they insist on a hefty deposit before treatment,
but when Avon HMO has your back, you won't have to scream, Yekba, because in the end, we all need people. Visit avonhealthcare.com now to get an Avon health plan for you and your people.
Avon HMO, empowering you to live a healthier, fuller life.
That was how she almost gave her fiance heart attack. She sent a message to her fiance that reads, "I can't do this anymore. My boss is so frustrating. I'm going to quit." Little did BC know that her data finished, and the only part of her message he received was, "I can't do this anymore." Now the matter is still set low.
Avoid stories that touch. Get the Glow special data plans and get 7 gigabytes for 1,500 naira, 2 gigabytes for 500 naira, and 1 gigabyte for 300 naira to browse, download, and stream your favorite content online. Simply dial *312# to subscribe.
Glow Unlimited.
There's a reason why over 1 million people tune into Hard Facts every day. We discuss in-depth stories with sources behind the facts.
The Lagos State High Court has convicted, suspended the Chicago certificate. It's never going away, is it? Show with stories for the day.
You hear diverse voices and opinions.
And she was meeting her friend with her husband, knowing that.
You should not put happy because there is nothing to happy about.
Yeah, it's quite pathetic the way the country is going.
We distinguish each story accurately with analysis.
It's Hard Facts with Maryann Okon on 99.3 Nigeria Info.
Welcome back from the break. If you're just joining us, it's Global Review 99.3 Nigeria Info. The program is Hard Facts, and we're looking at, of course, the race for the Oval Office. And for those of you who know what the Oval Office is the most revered office in the United States of America. That's the office of the president. And as we speak, we're talking about a chance maybe for America to have the first female president who's not just a woman, but she's black, she's Indian. Well, I don't know. Or maybe Donald Trump might be returning to the Oval Office to continue his wall. Who knows? The American people will decide. But my guest, John Gunnison, is still here with us in the studio. John, I said we were going to talk about Donald Trump and, of course, the shooting. There's still that debate, even right here in Nigeria. People are saying, oh, it was staged. Some people are saying, no, he escaped, by the whiskers. And then, of course, the trend where everyone seems to be wearing that thing on their ear. I mean, the Republicans. For many, when this happened, many people on this side of the divide said, look, Trump has won the elections. There's nothing that anyone can say. But here we are. Trump is now being led by Kamala by, I think, 2 points. In the last time I checked the polls, he was 42 and she was 44. But let's talk about Donald Trump. He is actually one that the Republicans should be worried about, right?
Worried about in what way, Maryann? I mean, I think we're all worried about him in some way, but in what way do you mean the Republicans might be worried about him?
Politically and maybe otherwise. Who knows?
Indeed. Well, he's a very volatile and chaotic personality. I think that people in Nigeria are probably quite familiar with this, given how he dominated global news headlines, not just American news headlines, for almost a decade at this point.
Well, John, let me shock you. There are many Nigerians who support Donald Trump. In fact, they think he's the better guy for the job. You'd be shocked.
That doesn't surprise me at all, Maryann. You know, I've sometimes read some of the, Naraland forums and things like that, and I've definitely encountered people from Nigeria who do support Donald Trump.
Yeah.
But the question is really how many Americans support him, because we're going to be the ones that get to decide this election. And right now, it's kind of an unclear picture, really, because we've got a huge polling industry of companies that are surveying the public to see which way they're going to vote. But all of the polling so far has been focused on this race that we all were expecting between the incumbent president, Joe Biden, and Donald Trump. There hasn't been very much polling about Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump, and there especially hasn't been very much polling about Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump since Joe Biden announced his decision to retire, and she has become the expected candidate. So the race is in a different place now than it has been up to this point. So even though there's been a small handful of polls, we don't have quite enough to really be able to tell what the landscape is looking like right now. So it's a lot of speculation.
Well, we've seen him speak. He's really come out to speak since after Kamala decided that she was throwing her hat into the ring. And again, he's picked his running mate quite early in the game. And that's Mr. Vance. Let's talk about Vance for those who do not necessarily know his political trajectory.
Vance is a pretty interesting character. He's quite young. He's not really very much older than me. He's in his late 30s. And he comes from a background that was interesting enough to be the subject of a best-selling book and then a feature film. So Vance comes from a part of the United States that is relatively economically disadvantaged, one of the more poor parts of the United States, economically speaking, which is adjacent to Appalachia, a mountain region in sort of the center of the United States, not on the coasts. And this is a place, southern Ohio in his case, where there were a lot of problems with drug addiction, opium addiction, heroin addiction, prescription drug addiction, where a lot of people had a worse economic situation than their parents because of deindustrialization, the closure of factories and the industrial base that came a lot out of that region. And so he came from that background, a disadvantaged background, and then went on to become quite a success rather young. He went to Yale Law School, which is the most prestigious school of law probably in the entire world, where most of our Supreme Court justices were educated. He went on to work in Silicon Valley as a venture capitalist in the tech industry, which is really probably the wealthiest part, not only of the United States, but of the entire world. And he wrote a book about this experience going from a poor background to the wealthiest part of the United States called Hillbilly Elegy, that was then adapted into a feature film with top Hollywood talent, Ron Howard as the director, a fellow redhead like me, and then Amy Adams, another fellow redhead playing his mother, and Glenn Close, the multi-Oscar nominee, playing his grandmother, and she was nominated for an Oscar for appearing in this movie.
Wow.
So J.D. Vance was this celebrity author, and at the time that he was mostly known as this celebrity kind of Hollywood memoirist, he was very critical of Donald Trump. He went on television saying that he thought Donald Trump was a rapist. He, in private messages, compared him to Adolf Hitler. And he's in an article that was published in The Atlantic, he compared Donald Trump to heroin, which for someone who came out of a region of the United States that was devastated by heroin addiction is one of the most, I think, hard-hitting things that you can possibly say about somebody. And that's why it's so remarkable that in the last couple of years, as he's tried to pivot from celebrity authorship into a political career, he's taken a completely different direction in the way that he talks about Donald Trump, and has now ended up becoming his running mate quite improbably.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most defining thing for both of them, or the most similarity, is the fact that they're both TV stars of sorts. I mean, they're both celebrities of sorts. Which makes the ticket a celebrity ticket, if you ask me.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny, Maryann, because the celebrities in the United States usually support the Democratic Party. They supported Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris. And I think that's part of why Republican voters, the voters on the other side, are interested in voting for these celebrities, because they feel left out of the celebrity world, and they get so excited when a celebrity is endorsing their side. And so they see Trump and Vance and they say, we've got some celebrities that like us, and it makes them much more excited. Whereas for the Democrats, they don't really get that excited about celebrities because they're very used to having them on their side.
Well, let's talk about rhetoric here. Vance has been credited to speak about something very sensitive on Kamala, obviously much more like taking the mickey out of the fact that she's not had a child of her own. And I saw, what's her name now? Jennifer Aniston, her post just before we started this conversation, saying that she really prays that, Vance's daughter does not have to experience, not having a child that she can call hers. I think that this has not necessarily sat well with a lot of Americans.
That's exactly right, Maryann. So as J.D. Vance was trying to change his public persona from being a sensitive writer who understands the poor people and empathizes with them and can move between the different worlds of Silicon Valley and Appalachia, he was trying to change from that persona into a person who was harder hitting, more mean-spirited, and can fit into the Donald Trump political movement. And so he would go on television and say these kinds of mean-spirited things. And one of the things that he said, and these quotes are not new, they're from 3 years ago. He said that the United States should not be run by people who don't have children. He called them crazy cat ladies, the image of someone at home with cats instead of children, treating their cats like they're their children. And he said they shouldn't even have the right to vote. We should only let people who have children have the right to vote. Wow. Of course, so many Americans, just like so many people all over the world, don't have children, and often can't have children because of health conditions, because of difficulty with the adoption system, because their spouse, died before they were able to have children. There's lots of very personal and often tragic reasons why people don't have children, and some, might just choose not to. And it's such an insulting thing to say to a vast swath of America. And it's not even exactly true about Kamala Harris, because she is the stepmother to 2 children that were her husband's children from a previous marriage. Yeah. So she is a mother, even if they are not children that she gave birth to. And so it's another way of insulting a family that way, to say, if you've got stepchildren, they're not real children. And so many people are reacting very negatively to these comments, and it is expected to certainly backfire on Donald Trump for choosing Vance as his vice presidential running mate, knowing that these comments were out there.
Let's talk about the United States people before we wrap this up. It's very interesting. Like I started by saying, this is not just the first woman, if it were to happen, that would be the first woman president, but first black woman president, if it does happen. But the question I've been asking all through this week is, are the American people ready to have a woman in the Oval Office? I mean, we saw what happened to Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton was not just a woman. She was a former Secretary of State, a former First Lady, and a white lady in the United States. But she didn't make that, cut, thanks to the Electoral College. Who's to say that might not be the same fate for Kamala? I know that you might be very optimistic, but hey, let's hear it.
Well, it's an important question, and it's a question that no one really knows the answer to. We can look at the case of Hillary Clinton, but that's the only case that we have. It's the only time that a major American political party has ever nominated a woman for president. So we can project a lot on that one case, but it's only one case. It's not really enough of a sample size to say whether we've got a huge pattern here. And there were so many complicating factors in the case of Hillary Clinton. You mentioned that she was the first lady of the United States. That's something that probably harmed her candidacy that doesn't apply to Vice President Harris. Americans were rejecting political dynasties at the time. There was a lot of disappointment in President George W. Bush and how he had come after his father only a few years later as president. There was the sense that America should not be run by powerful political families. That, of course, is not a concern with Vice President Harris. At the time that Hillary Clinton ran, the Democrats were also trying to get 12 consecutive years in the White House. It had come after 8 years of Barack Obama, who's part of the same party as Hillary Clinton. That's a very difficult thing to do. The only other time in recent memory that has happened was in 1988. So it's very, very hard to do that. So I think that we have to kind of wipe the slate clean a little bit of our memories of the Clinton candidacy as we look at the prospects that Harris could become president. You talked about her background a little bit, Maryann. Something else that I wanted to point out is not only would she become the first woman president, would she be the first Asian American president and the second Black president? What's interesting is that both of her parents were immigrants to the United States. They both came from other countries. So her father, Donald Harris, came from Jamaica, and her mother came from southern India and Tamil Nadu. So it's very interesting to see that we might have a president who's a first-generation American, someone who both of their parents immigrated to the United States from other countries. And I think that would be a pretty powerful thing. There's the idea of the American dream that someone can come from anywhere and make it in America. Whether or not that's really true is something that is quite contested in American and I think international political discourse. Americans think that immigration to America is much easier, I think, than people from Nigeria or other places perceive it to be. It seems much more difficult to immigrate to America if you're really looking at it from the outside. So I think that it would be really interesting and powerful thing to see someone who is the child of two immigrants becoming U.S. president.
All right. I'm going to open up the phone lines and let some people ask questions. Lagos, the phone lines are open. You can call 0201-277-0993 for the men. For the ladies, 0201-465-7190. You can also call via Skype if you're listening from outside of the country. We're Nigeria Info FM. On WhatsApp, 08095975805. I'll take your calls 30 seconds each because we have very limited time and we've got to be very quick. Hello, welcome to Hard Facts.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening. Yes.
My name is Kelvin.
Kelvin, go ahead.
Just a very quick question. I've always known United States to be a respected nation, and every U.S. citizen grows up to know U.S. to be a powerful state. And currently, under Biden, I think that has actually dropped because I believe if Trump was to be president, Israel wouldn't have had the attack they had, believe me. And now the United States people might want to have a Donald Trump who is high-hearted and would do anything. And again, I also want to believe that if Donald Trump was the president, Vladimir wouldn't have taken Ukraine the way he did.
So what is your question? Your 30 seconds is over. What's your question?
See, my question is, don't you think the United States people will want a Donald Trump back who will come and restore the dignity that they feel Biden has lost as the U.S. president?
All right. I did tell you that Nigerians, some Nigerians really support Trump. Now, that's a good question. He's asking. They need someone who's going to be, strong enough to stand against Vladimir and, Hamas.
Well, I would probably disagree with the caller. I'm not sure that I really see any reason why Donald Trump being president would have somehow prevented the attack on Israel on October 7th. I don't really see any connection there whatsoever. It was a security failure by the Israeli government, the Israeli leadership. Likewise, it's not actually true that Russia didn't attack Ukraine during Trump's presidency. Russia were at war with Ukraine throughout the entirety of Donald Trump's presidency. And, looking a little bit broader at international conflicts, I was living in the Middle East throughout the entire Trump presidency, except for the last 6 months. And I remember that we actually had much more instability in the Middle East at that time than we do now. Even though the war in Gaza is taking up a lot of headlines, there were much more wars going on and much more conflict going on in the region generally at the time Trump was in office than there is today. The war in Yemen was much worse. The war in Syria was much worse. There was a lot more violence happening in Iraq. Across the region, there was much, much more instability then than there is now. So I would take a lot of issue, I think, with that characterization, I should say, of events. I recall the events very well because I was in that part of the world at the time.
Okay. All right. I want to quickly take some messages on WhatsApp because of time. I have just 3 minutes on the clock, and I want to do justice to everybody's message. Someone is telling me that Skype is down. Oh, dear. I'm so sorry about that, Skype people. Apologies. But I want to read some messages here. Someone says, listening to the speech at the Oval Office yesterday on TV, I just love the man Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., a true Democrat. I wish Kamala gets nominated. I listened to her first speech after Joe announced her as his nominee. She isn't only experienced, but courageous, brave, intelligent, and smart. Trump fans, Nigerians, will not be happy with this. Jade Vance is so pathetic, he says, for the statements he made against Harris's childlessness. Thank God she isn't Nigerian. The way things will be going now, hence the United States election might be unpredictable. And yes, I think Americans are ready for a woman president. And she says, Kamala 2024. Messi from Maza Maza. Thank you, Messi.
Maryann, it's interesting to hear that Nigerians are just as divided about the American election as Americans are.
Yeah, it's interesting because, of course, when the United States is going to the polls, everyone is interested. The markets are affected. Everybody wants to know, which way to, face. So that's why you and I are discussing this at this time of the day. I'll take one quick call and then, of course, I'll wrap things up here. Hello?
Hello?
Turn off your radio, please.
Hello?
Turn off your radio and call me back. Thank you very much. Hello, welcome to Hard Facts.
Hello, Auntie Miriam. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. You have 30 seconds. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
This is Emmanuel. I'm calling you from Chevron.
Go ahead.
Okay, I have two questions I want to ask you again.
30
now,
seconds.
The first question, do you think Harris has a better chance competing with Trump if she loses the election now? Will you say it's because Biden dropped from the competition? Now, my second question, the assassination attempt on Trump, don't you think it was a way trying to remove him from the competition, knowing fully well that he had a better chance of winning the election?
All right. Thank you very much, Emmanuel. John, I think you have 60 seconds to be able to answer this question so we can go.
Maryann, could you repeat or summarize the questions? I couldn't quite hear them. I hope that's okay.
He asked the assassination attempt. Do you think it was a way to try to get Trump out of the race? And then he's saying, if Kamala loses, will it be because Biden stepped down?
I would say absolutely not to the first question. I think that there is the sort of tendency to to develop conspiracy theories about something like this. United States, we're still dealing with conspiracy theories from the 1963 assassination of John F. Kennedy. I think there's a tendency in the United States. Richard Hofstadter wrote The Paranoid Style in American Politics, that we always want to conspiratize things. But we also have to apply Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is often the most accurate one. And everything that we know about this event demonstrates that it was a lone shooter acting really out of loneliness and antagonism towards the whole system, which is quite common in America. That's why we have these school shooters. So I think that it was not as political an event as it might appear. It was the simpler explanation that a person had such easy access to a firearm that a mentally ill tendency caused him to try to make himself into a big deal. So that's what I would say, I think, to that. I don't know if I have enough time to answer the next question.
We have to go, but I want to say thank you. John Gunnison has been a very interesting guest for us today. He's really, really broken down these issues, and it's always great to have an insider have this conversation with us. He's a public commentator, and we've had him on the show before, but today we really enjoyed the conversation. John, thank you so much for being here. Well, fingers crossed. I'm hoping that I'll be there for to cover the elections. It'll be my first time watching the Americans go to the polls. Thank you, John, for coming
Excellent.
on the show. All right.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Well, Lagos, there you have it on Global Review. We'll take a break, and when we come back on the other side of the clock, I'll be saying my goodbyes because our eyes will be on France.
More news.
Getting ready for the Olympics and the pre-games for tonight. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
That special secret that awakens taste buds. Mouth-watering wonder with awesome aroma. Terra seasoning cubes.
99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.